Well, as I said, it's been a remarkable news day. At a lunchtime media conference, the Prime Minister was joined by the Foreign and Home Affairs Ministers, plus the head of ASIO, Mike Burgess, revealing that a foreign government, Iran, and its Revolutionary Guard Corps were using locals here in Australia to stir up anti-Semitism, including attacks in Sydney and in Melbourne. Joining me now, Sky's Andrew Clennell, who's been across this all day. I mean, you've got to ask a question that you asked at the beginning of the day, Andrew, where to start. I mean, the timelines maybe. Our embassy in Tehran, the ambassador and the staff, they all got rushed out of the country, flown to an undisclosed third nation. You wonder when the government first was alerted that they had to do that.
Yeah, they must have known for a while, but ASIO formally told them yesterday, and that must have been timed, I guess, Steve. But ASIO Director General said they've been investigating since October. It's good it's finally out there, I guess, but the government was encouraged to prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard of Iran 2 years ago by the opposition. They said we couldn't because they're a state actor, not a non-state actor. Well, guess what? State actors can do terrorism as well. Look, it was a real shock today. I mean, I was certainly not expecting anything like this. I can't remember anything like it before. I was told, and I looked it up, that this has occurred, though, in Germany and Europe, that the Revolutionary Guard have hired Crims, the Hells Angels motorbike gang, to conduct such attacks. And the thing about it, the people charged in relation to the Melbourne attack are 20 and 21, and they didn't kill anyone. I mean, you know, they obviously, Tony Burke said today, the Home Affairs Minister, that they did harm people because they harmed them psychologically. But it's kind of bizarre to have a state actor involved and yet an amateur job. And it's really odd. And look, disappointing to say the very least, shocking, disgraceful. And I feel for any Australians in Iran or even Iranian Australians who have to cop a regime that would do this. And obviously I feel for Jewish Australians. I mean, the sort of fear this will engender amongst them, it's really awful stuff. It's almost like a bit of an act of war, but a ham-fisted one, isn't it? It's bizarre stuff.
It is. I mean, and all sorts of alarm bells went off for me because I went back and had a look. I mean, if you go back to March and that whole charade around that caravan in Sydney, and there was discussion back then that Australian organised crime figures based outside of our country in places like Iraq and in the UAE could have been involved somehow in this happening. And so we'll have to wait till the court case. Well, now we've got the ambassador, first one booted out of the country, Andrew, I think since World War II. Here's the Prime Minister at that media conference where you were today.
Iran has sought to disguise its involvement, but ASIO assesses it was behind the attacks on the Lewis Continental Kitchen in Sydney on October 20 last year and the Adass Israel Synagogue in Melbourne on December 6 last year.
So you had that food business and, of course, you had the Adass Synagogue in Melbourne that were attacked. It seems that we are looking at some sort of scheme where Iran gets involved with its Revolutionary Guard, and some organised crime figure over there perhaps organises a couple of people who probably not paid all that much to do what they've done here,
Exactly.
with the intention, I guess, of raising tensions among the Jewish community.
Like drug mules, isn't it? And it's state-sponsored terrorism, using a 20 and a 21-year-old, allegedly. You know, like, they've taken some firm action. I wonder if there's more sanction action on the way. I guess we already have sanctions against Iran, but booting the ambassador out, as you say, it's the biggest act since World War II. But how do you prevent such things going forward? And it shows some of these attacks are more sinister than they've been painted as, including by the government. You know, the government in some ways has been trying to say these, and police too have been trying to say these are two big crims and all that sort of thing. Yeah, they are, but guess what? They're state-sponsored. Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO, said today, they're not just looking at these two incidents, Steve. They're looking at a dozen. So we can expect more revelations along these lines. And we've all been disturbed by these anti-Semitic attacks. As I say, I can't imagine what it's like to be a Jewish Australian at the moment, living under this pall of fear. You know, you're away from the trouble spot and you're copping trouble at home from a foreign country. Is there anything else that the government can do in terms of penalties for people who carry out these attacks? Surely there is. I think they've already acted a bit in that department, but surely there's a call now for more action in that area. And they've already given some more funding for security around synagogues and the like. Can they do more? Surely they can do more. I mean, these are attacks on Australians, Jewish Australians. Australians could have been killed in these attacks. And if they were to keep going, it's only a matter of time before they are. They're fire bombings. They're not just graffiti or lighting a fire when, you know, someone's in the middle of the night when no one's there. Someone could be there. So I think this really changes the game, changes the dynamic in terms of how we are going to view these attacks from now on in.
Well, you'd hope ASIO now has got, you know, a hell of a lot more intelligence. I just wonder too, I mean, you and I are in the middle of this as it's unfolding. I mean, there's a lot to come on the back of this, I think. A lot more information will come out. You wonder, for example, if Israel's intelligence services were somehow involved in tipping off ASIO. That wouldn't surprise me, and we've seen it before, Andrew, haven't we, where I think Mossad tipped off ASIO about a potential terror attack in Australia that was actually stopped. So I think we're going to find out a hell of a lot more. And the Jewish community, quite rightly today, I might just play a little bit of Alex Rivchin. He was really, I think, expressing again how on edge they are. Have a look.
They'll be deeply anxious, I would suspect, knowing that, again, a regime that has caused so much misery and death and suffering throughout the world, that has targeted the Jewish community in deadly attacks in many places, that they honed in on the Australian Jewish community. It's a terrifying notion. And the question foremost in our minds will be, who's next? Are there still operatives at large? Are there plots still developing?
You wonder, Andrew, where we go with the terror alert. You wonder where we go with telling people not to go to Iran. We wonder about Australians. There's a lot of Australians working in Iran.
Yeah, that's a horrendous situation. They've told the embassy people, but no one else. I guess they couldn't tell anyone else. But what does that mean for Australians there? Should they be offering flights out of there? You're right, this isn't a one-day story. We'll see more in terms of the court proceedings and fact sheets. In terms of whether Israel's intelligence was involved, I suspect so, because in answer to my question today at the press conference, the head of ASIO, Mike Burgess, said that they've been working with foreign partners. Well, who would that be? That'd be Israel, surely. Maybe the US, I don't know. There couldn't be too many more. So there's no question they've tipped off our intelligence service. You want to have services, you want to have a look at this. They have. They've done a full report. They've convinced themselves it's definitely being sponsored by the Islamic Republic. You'd think there'd be a lot of electronic surveillance and the like that's uncovered that. And they've acted. And they've acted publicly. And it's a very disturbing development in our times. I mean, it brings national security right to the forefront again in terms of an issue in this country.
100%. We'll have to wait for some of the more fallout. Andrew Clennell, always great to catch up. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Steve.